Thank you, everyone. Looks like time for questions. As discussed, we will start in the room. I'd like to start with Kevin Gallagher, CTV, please.
Good morning. My first question is for Health Minister Tam and Declos, and also Dr. Theresa Tam can follow up as well. Given this reevaluation, it seems that's happening ongoing, as you say, for public health measures, and we'll lump in their mandates. I'd like to ask, what data or studies contributed to imposing specifically vaccine mandates? In terms of, was there any data that showed that this would be the best way to increase uptake of vaccinations, especially when we're talking about people who are vaccine hesitant or anti-vax? Obviously, I don't need to remark about why I'm asking this question. Ottawa has been occupied by what the mayors call the siege, by people who have strict and staunch views against vaccination and feel that their rights have been violated in some way by mandates. I'm not here to necessarily debate whether the government can put mandates in or not, but I'd like to know if there was any data or studies that backed up the decision to impose them as a way to encourage people to get vaccinated, and if there's any evidence to show that that measure would be useful for people who are already vaccine hesitant or staunchly anti-vax.
Well, thank you for the question. I'll start by saying that vaccination is not punishment. Vaccination is protection. And in fact, it's a protection that science gave us about a year ago. We had hoped about 2 years ago that we would eventually be able to have vaccination as protection. That came enormously faster than scientists at that time, about 2 years ago, thought it would come. And since about a year now, we have had the gift and the fortune of being able to vaccinate Canadians across the country. So it's not punishment, it's protection for the person. When I have been vaccinated, I receive my booster dose. When I do that, it's because I want to protect myself. But I also do that because I want to protect my family, my parents when I go and visit them, my friends when I meet them. And when I see my children be vaccinated, I'm glad for them. I'm also glad for their friends that they will be able to be engaged with. So it's not punishment, it's protection. The second thing is about the protection of vaccination. Dr. Tam might want to summarize the current knowledge around virology and immunization. But we know, as she summarized earlier, that although it's not perfect, it's working. But it's working even more with booster doses, and that's the key message I think that Canadians would like to hear again today, is that a booster dose is needed, is useful, is important for all eligible Canadians. And the third thing is that vaccination mandates work. Now, 99% of public servants have done the right thing. They have been vaccinated. Some estimates both within Canada and outside Canada suggest that a large number of Canadians were perhaps better able to understand the value of being protected and to be able to lead a more normal life through vaccination. There are some estimates that it could be up to 3 million Canadians that over the last 6 months, because of mandates and at the federal and provincial levels, now chose to be vaccinated, perhaps quicker and perhaps in large numbers. Let's imagine what the situation with Omicron would now be if we had 3 or up to 3 million Canadians not vaccinated with the current situation. And finally, and I'll turn to Dr. Tam in a second, an important reason for which we are moving away from the peak of Omicron is that large number of Canadians, not large enough still, about 50%, have received a booster dose over the last few weeks. That gave them extra superior protection against Omicron. And in addition to that, now people have been making the right choice. Now they obviously understood that public health measures were there to protect them. We followed them in large numbers, and that's therefore one more reason for which we do have this ability, in addition obviously to the natural immunity that has been created through the large incidence and infections of COVID-19. Some estimates in Quebec and Ontario suggested it could be up to about 20 to 25% of Canadians that have been infected since the start of Omicron in December. So these are large numbers of people either naturally immunized or because of vaccination. And I know I'm speaking a bit too much, perhaps, but I should turn immediately then to Dr. Tam.
Thank you. I won't add too much on the vaccine mandates, but there's now obvious evidence that they work. And I think in the Canadian context, you can look at it for individual jurisdictions, but immediately after an announcement of vaccine mandates, and then the actual operationalization of them, there was an uptake. We saw a plateau in the uptake of vaccines after a really tremendous effort by Canadians. And then after the introduction of vaccine mandates by the various provinces and territories and jurisdictions, we did see an uptick, and that can be different between jurisdictions, but there definitely is one. And there's increasing international literature showing that mandates work. But it's not the only tool, and it never has been. For us in public health, building vaccine confidence and trust is the primary tool, providing the general public with robust information and trusted messages is really key. Providing access to vaccines is really key, because many populations have difficulties accessing the vaccines, maybe because they work different hours. So getting access was very important. Reducing inequities, helping debunk misinformation is extremely important. And I think vaccine mandates may particularly nudge those who are in the middle, trying to figure out whether they'll get it or not, has prompted them to actually get vaccinated. But there was certainly a huge number of Canadians who were very much supportive of the evidence-based measures, such as vaccination being a really incredible tool.
I'll just follow up. My question wasn't really about whether I have listened to many of these press conferences and have listened to the data about how vaccines are effective. I understand your point about how mandates have increased the vaccination rate in some cases. My question was quite specific about, and maybe I'll just frame it in another way here. What's the plan to reach out to people who are so opposed to vaccination, perhaps basing their information on misinformation, as Dr. Tam just pointed out, that they would be willing to, pretty much put their lives on hold to paralyze the nation's capital? What is the best method to reach out to some people who seemingly don't trust the opinions of Dr. Tam, don't trust your opinion, Health Minister, and have lost faith, frankly, in my reporting and other of my colleagues in the mainstream so-called media, right? So what is moving forward, should there be a different approach or tactic for reaching out to people who are staunchly anti-vax and very much opposed to mandates or vaccinations in general?
Well, this is a great question. I would separate the answers in two parts. First, benevolence, and second, trust. I think we want to speak benevolently about vaccination. It's again there to protect people. It's not there to punish people. And in speaking about that, the benevolent value of vaccination, the good, because benevolent means you want good. I suppose it's from Latin. So you want good for others. And I think it's a language that not only unites people, but as you said, brings people forward. Now, on trust, I agree that there is a lot of disinformation around all sorts of things, including around the benefits of vaccination. But I'll turn to Dr. Tam quickly, because PHAC has obviously collaboration with many partners, many of them at the provincial and territorial levels. PHAC did succeed in providing both the benefit, the value, the benevolence of vaccination, and also decreasing the disinformation to which you alluded. Dr. Tam, would you like to give a few examples of how PHAC does that?
Yes, I think recognizing that not everyone listens necessarily to government sources, or indeed some other really incredible expert panels, such as National Advisory Committee on Immunization, we funded a whole range of projects that enable other leaders in the community, elders, religious leaders, are supported in the way that they can further support their own communities, Black Canadians, and other communities who, quite frankly, had lots of reasons to be distrustful of government and authorities. They've been brought along to get vaccinated because of the trusted voices in their own communities. And that has got us to this far as Canada having one of the best vaccination rates in the world. But there will always be a small percentage of people who will not essentially take up the vaccine no matter what we do. And that has been observed in a multitude of vaccination campaigns. And that is probably to be expected, that some people will not change their minds. But because so many people, the vast majority of people having been vaccinated, we are able to move forwards in our transition to be able to manage this virus and COVID-19 in a more adaptable and sustainable way.
Before we turn to the next question, I just should insert one thing. I'm aware that I believe Mr. Declos may have to leave in about 15 minutes, and we have other questions in the room, but we have some Francophone reporters on the line.